SRAM has updated the popular Force AXS and Force Explore group sets, and having already spent some time on the road version, let me tell you how it actually rides.
It's not slow, but there is still a slight delay.
Now I know what you're thinking, how is this actually different from the old one aside from an updated set of graphics and some sparkly paint? Well, before I get to my first impressions, let me take you through 5 key points that you need to know before you buy this group set. Number 1. There is a new front derailleur that is said to improve shifting up front. Number 2. The integrated chainrings have been taken from red and you now have the option of the bigger 50-37 chainrings. Number 3. The shift paddle depth has been reduced for less knuckle crushing on descents. 4. The shifter body shape has been taken straight from SRAM Rival. And finally, number 5, there's still a 1x specific gravel version. It's still called Explore, but there is a new chain set and the rear derailleur will still take a 1036 or a 1044 tooth cassette. And that's about it. Explore shares most of the tech with the road group set. Now, flying out to the southern end of Portugal after a long winter of cold, wet commutes along the Bristol-Bath cycle path is hardly the toughest gig in the world.
It's honestly stupendous. It's brilliant.
So, with the world's smallest violin playing off, I trekked keen to see what SRAM had done to the new Force AXS group set. On arrival, I have to say that there wasn't much cool tech to notice. It's much more of an incremental upgrade than a major change to the technology. That said, there are a few changes to take a look at, so I swung a leg over a lovely Trek de Marne and then a Cervelo Caledonia before heading off for a spin. Keen to know what the changes felt like on the bike.
Right, let's go and test it.
I'll get to what I think is the best update to the new Force group set in just a moment, but let's start with the first thing that I noticed, as it'll likely be the first thing that you noticed too. When SRAM introduced the Rival eTap Access group set, changes were made to the hood ergonomics and features such as pad contact point adjustment were removed. I have to say that I was actually a fan of the smaller shifter body, so to see that the Rival shifter shape has come to the Force level is a very good thing for me. Gone are the auxiliary ports for the wired blips, SRAM's satellite shift buttons. SRAM told me that this has been done to allow for a smaller shifter body. They also said to compensate for the loss of the blip ports, you can now connect up to 6 axis wireless shifters, and that is a very good thing. I had the wireless shifters set up to the underside of the tops of the handlebar. In this position, they worked really well, allowing for quick gear changes when riding on straighter roads and gravel tracks. SRAM says that these shifters can be used on the inside of the drops, acting as a sprinter shifter. However, I'm not so much of a fan of using them here, as the body around the button is quite large. There are also some small changes to the lever and paddle shapes, but they are minor. The paddle, for example, has had this tail chopped off, which SRAM says will prevent you from crushing your knuckles under braking. That's quite considerate. It's still very easy to use this system and is certainly the easiest group set to get to grips with. The first thing that you'll notice is the redesigned logos, along with a sparkly finish to the component. Now, it's quite a subtle look at first glance, but take this stuff out here in the sunlight and you'll find that it really pops. My favourite part of the look is certainly that slight metal flake. What I don't like so much is the finish of the logos, which look a little, to me, just like stickers. Not so good. However, the new chainring design taken from red does help to make this group set look more top tier than it actually is. On that subject, you might be interested to know that SRAM has kept the pricing the same. That's very good to see in today's economic climate. The major improvement, which was instantly noticeable, came at the front derailleur. SRAM has made some changes to the profile of the cage while also bringing the Red AXS integrated chainrings down to the Force level. Now combine them and this creates a very smooth shift from inner to outer ring. While mucking around with this before my first ride was very fun, I was very keen to try the shifting while putting some real power down through the pedals. Once we started to climb, I dropped back from the group and flicked the chain into the inner ring. Now, I'm not recommending this as best practice, but I then stood up, stamped on the pedals, and asked the front derailleur to give me the big ring. Not only did the system do this without fuss, but the shift was perfectly quiet too.
That shift from the little ring to the big ring is honestly stupendous.
It's an impressive improvement over the old SRAM Force group set and will make for a very interesting test when we pit this group set against Shimano's Ultegra group set. Now, who wants to see that? Let me know in the comments below. While a lot has changed in the front derailleur, improvements to the rear shifting are a bit more subtle, but they are very welcome. With the outgoing Force group set, getting the chain into the largest sprocket at the top of the cassette was noticeable and made me question why SRAM had designed its rear block this way. The good news is that my initial impressions suggest that SRAM has smoothed this jump. But the jump between the silver part of the cassette and the black cog that you can see there is certainly less noticeable. Shifting through the rest of the cassette is still just as accurate as the outgoing version, but the biggest improvement that you'll find back here is one that you might not even notice. In more extreme gear combinations, mostly when in the outer chainring and largest rear sprocket, I found that the drivetrain noise has been significantly reduced. Okay, so riding shorter climbs while slightly cross-chaining might not be best practice for extending drivetrain life, but it can help you to keep your momentum in these situations rather than dropping into the little ring. And hey, it feels good too. A new feature that I'd like to touch on in more detail is the integrated chainring design that has filtered its way down from SRAM's Red group set. The integrated direct mount design is said to increase the quality of shifting because the system is stiffer than the 4-bolt design it replaces. There is also a claimed weight saving, but if and when you need to replace a chainring, you'll need to pay out for a whole double chainring setup. Should you also have a power meter on your bike, like this one does, then this will have to be replaced too, a move that doesn't scream environmental consideration. SRAM told us that consumers don't actually replace chainrings nearly as often as you might think, but even if this is the case, the integrated system means that you lose the ability to sub in a smaller inner chainring when, for example, you head for a weekend of serious climbing. I would have liked to have seen a shiny chrome finish like you get with the red chainrings, but only because it rewards the fastidious bike cleaner. When it comes to the brakes, not a huge amount has actually changed in what you feel at the lever. Pulling on the brakes, the levers felt very firm in my hands and the plentiful power was easy to modulate. SRAM says that it has made a running change to the Force brakes, moving to a 2-piece body. This supposedly allows SRAM to accurately machine the bore holes, resulting in better piston retraction following heavy braking and therefore reducing rotor rub. That's the theory anyway, and while I did get a bit of time to relearn how to descend following a winter of straight and flat cycle path commutes, it will take me a little more time to see whether this manufacturing change has had any bearing on rotor rub. I was hoping for a bit more progression through the lever travel. The old brakes felt a little wooden in my hands and I was hoping to find a slightly squishy lever feel, reminiscent of those high-end rim brakes that we all loved. The short story, unfortunately, is that SRAM hasn't actually changed enough here to rival Shimano's latest servo wave equipped brakes. What's your opinion on the Big Two's braking? Let me know in the comments below. This might sound a little confusing, but the Cervelo Caledonia that SRAM provided me with was equipped with the 2x wide version of the Force AXS rather than the gravel-specific 1x Explore kit. It was set up with the 44-33 chainrings, specific wide front derailleur and a 10-36 tooth cassette. Now on the gravel of southern Portugal it worked really well, remaining quiet as I tried my best to put down the power. The gearing might be a bit steep for some gravel rides, and really it would have been better to test the gravel specific Explore stuff. However, if I was heading for a mountainous training camp, who wants to sponsor that video, I'd say, or if you're shifters and chain set with a mountain bike rear derailleur and cassette for a massive spread of gears. Two rides simply isn't enough to fully review a group set, and without a sniff of rain in Portugal, we certainly need to treat SRAM Force AXS to some more testing conditions. What I can say, however, is that my initial impressions are good, if a little underwhelming. I do not mean this in a bad way. The shifting has been improved and the braking remains dependable. Those things are the tangible elements of a group set that affect your everyday experience. So it's great to find no nasty surprises here. SRAM is also keeping the price the same as the old stuff, which is really good in a world where everything is getting more expensive. As a group set, it really improves on what was a relatively high bar, and there is a lot to love. There just isn't much new tech to get excited about. With that said, it's just time for you to like this video if you liked it. Get in the comments to tell me whether you're actually tempted by this group set. Do you like the sparkly finish? And if you love road tech, then why not check out this playlist? Ooh.